this problem where we're going to have to use the double angle formulas and the half angle formula. All right, so what information did they give me? They gave me that cosecant of theta is equal to negative square root of 5, and cosine is negative. All right, so I have to figure out sine and cosine for these formulas. So I'm going to have to draw a triangle. All right, so what quadrant am I in? Let's see. All students take calculus. They said cosine is negative. So that means it can't be the first or the fourth quadrant. So those quadrants are out. And then here they said cosecant is negative, which means sine is negative, right? Isn't this the reciprocal of sine? So sine's negative, so it can't be in quadrant 2. So we must be in quadrant 3. So let me draw my triangle in quadrant 3. And what information did they give me? They gave me cosecant is negative square root of 5. So what does that mean? Well, I already went ahead and flipped it. So negative 1 over square root of 5, where negative 1 is y, and square root of 5 is the hypotenuse, or r. And I was careful to make the 1 negative because that's y, and I'm in the third quadrant. The hypotenuse is always positive. So all I have to do right now is figure out x. How am I going to do that? Pythagorean's theorem. So that would be x squared plus negative 1 squared equals square root of 5 squared. X squared plus 1 equals 5. So x is plus or minus 2. But since we are in the third quadrant, it must be minus 2. Okay. So we have all the pieces we need. What do we need for this problem? We know that sine is negative 1 over square root of 5. I can go ahead and rationalize if I want to, but I'm not going to yet. I don't feel like it. And cosine is negative 2 over square root of 5, right? Negative 2, we just found out was x over the radius. So we have all the information we need for these formulas, because what's the formula for sine of 2 theta? 2 times cosine theta, sine theta. And what about cosine 2 theta? There's a couple formulas you could use, but I only have one memorized, cosine squared minus sine squared. So I just need sine and cosine for those formulas. And what about the half angle formula? The half angle will be plus or minus square root of 1 minus cosine theta all over 2. So this one only needs cosine. So I don't need tangent for any of these formulas. So I have everything I need. So let's erase the board. And let's do these first two. We could probably do them on the same board. So let's do these two. Okay, so what's the formula for sine 2 theta? So that would be 2 times sine theta times cosine theta. Okay, do we have all those pieces? 2 times sine theta, what is sine theta? Negative 1 over square root of 5 times cosine theta, which is negative 2 times square root of 5. So that would be negative times negative is positive. 2 times 2 is 4 over square root of 5 times square root of 5. And we get 4 divided by 5, 4/5. Simple enough. The hardest part is getting this information in the beginning and knowing the formula. Okay, what about cosine 2 theta? Again, there's like 3 formulas you can memorize. I know cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta because I know the sum formula for cosine. All right, so cosine squared. So cosine is negative 2 over radical 5, and we're going to square that, minus sine, which is negative 1 over square root of 5, and we're going to square that. Okay, what is 2 over square root of 5 squared? That would be 4/5 minus 1/5, which gives us 3/5. Again, not too hard. All right, we had one more problem. It was sine of theta divided by 2. So let's try that one. All right, so sine of theta divided by 2. The half angle formula is plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine theta over 2, everything in the radical. Plus or minus is determined by the quadrant with which theta over 2 is in. So let's deal with that later. Let's first plug everything into this formula. I went ahead and did rationalize the cosine function, so it'll be easier for me to plug it into this formula. So it'll be plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 2 radical 5 over 2. I'm sorry, that's over 5, isn't it? All over 2. I'm going to go ahead and clean this minus up into a plus, and I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So let me, because this is a complex fraction, we'll multiply this by 5, this by 5, and this by 5. So what do we have? We have plus or minus the square root of 5 plus 2 radical 5 all over 10. Okay, so now let's determine the sign. Alrighty, so where is theta? We know theta, remember in the very beginning we drew theta in quadrant 3. Sine is negative and cosine is negative. So we're in quadrant 3. So what does that mean? That means theta is between 3 pi over 2 and pi. But we don't care about the sine of theta for this problem. We care about the sine of theta divided by 2. So I'm going to divide everything by 2 to see where theta over 2, what quadrant theta over 2 is in. So that means theta over 2 is between 3 pi over 4 and pi over 2. What quadrant is this? So it's bigger than 90 degrees, but less than 135. What quadrant, right? If you can think of the visual, there's 3 pi over 4. Theta over 2 is somewhere between 90 degrees and 3 pi over 4. So what quadrant is this? This is quadrant 2. What sign is sine in quadrant 2? Sine is positive. So what is our final answer? Our final answer is positive. You don't have to write plus, but I'm going to just to exaggerate it. 5 plus 2 radical 5 all over 10. Use a half angle formula to find the exact value of sine of 195. All right, so let's see. First of all, I'd like to figure out what 195 is half of. 195 times 2. 10, carry the 9. 195 is half of 390. Okay, so I'm going to use 390 in the half angle formula. 390, what is 390? 390 is the same as 30, so I'm actually going to use 30. All right, so let's see. What's the formula? The formula is plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine of 390 all over 2. Okay. We could easily determine the sign because the sign, we want to know what the sign of 195 is. Where is 195? 195 would be in the third quadrant. So sine is negative. Okay, so we know that this sign is going to be negative because 195 is in the third quadrant and sine is negative. And also, instead of writing cosine of 390, that's the same as cosine of 30. So let's rewrite this as negative square root of 1 minus cosine of 30 divided by 2. Okay, now what is cosine of 30? So again, I'm thinking of my triangle, cosine of 30, adjacent is radical 3 over 2. So we have negative square root of 1 minus square root of 3 over 2, all over 2. I've got a complex fraction here, so I'm going to multiply everything by 2 to get rid of this fraction. I'm going to multiply this one by 2, this one by 2, and this one by 2. So we have negative square root of 2 minus radical 3 all over 4. And I can do one more thing. Because it's a perfect square in the denominator, I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of that. So my final answer is negative square root of 2 minus square root of 3 all over